Some betrayals feel like a slap, others like a punch to the chest, but the one that shattered me felt like drowning in slow motion. It started with small cracks, late nights at the office, nervous glances when his phone buzzed. The sudden shift in how Ryan touched me, distant and careful like I was made of glass. I knew something was wrong. I knew it long before I found the text messages, long before the whispered phone calls stopped when I entered the room. He swore it was over when I confronted him, stood there, looking me straight in the eye, and promised me he had ended it with Jessica Ward. I should have left then, but I stayed. I stayed because I wanted to believe our family still meant something. I wanted to believe the man I married was still buried somewhere inside the liar standing in front of me. I convinced myself I was strong enough to fix what he had broken, strong enough to keep our family from falling apart. But deep down, I already knew better. The air in our house had changed. Every word between us felt rehearsed. Every smile felt like it was hiding something darker. It was a Friday afternoon when the call from Fairview Elementary shattered every lie I had forced myself to believe. The voice on the phone shook as they told me there had been an incident outside the school gates. I remember the phone slipping from my fingers before they could finish. My chest tightened like a fist was crushing my ribs. My legs moved on instinct, taking me down the stairs, out the door, into the street. I don't even remember locking the door or grabbing my keys. All I could hear was Sophie's laughter in my head. The way she used to giggle when I tickled her. The way she used to whisper goodnight through the crack in her door. I ran faster, clutching at those memories, as if they might protect me from whatever nightmare waited at the end of the street. The sight of flashing lights hit me first. Bright red and blue, reflecting off the school walls, dancing like cruel warning signs. A crowd had gathered, parents holding their children tight, teachers whispering to officers. Fear hung in the air so thick I could barely breathe. My heart pounded louder with every step. And then I saw her. Sophie, my little girl, collapsed on the ground near the school gates, her small body curled in on itself, her hands clutching her face as she sobbed in short, broken gasps. I pushed past the officers, past the crowd, dropped to my knees, and reached for her. But the moment my hands touched her skin, my breath caught in my throat. The burning hit me like a shockwave, tearing through my palms, stealing the air from my lungs. I pulled my hands back and saw the damage. Her face, God, her sweet little face, blistered, peeling, raw, and red. Her hair stuck to her cheeks, damp with something that stung my nose. The scent was sharp, chemical, unforgettable. I knew what it was, even if I couldn't bring myself to say the word. Someone screamed for medical help. Another voice whispered a name that turned my blood to ice. Jessica Ward. My vision blurred as I turned toward the sound. And there she was, standing just feet away. Jessica, calm, smiling. Surrounded by officers, her hands cuffed behind her back like she had already accepted what was coming. She didn't struggle. She didn't flinch. She just stared at me, tilted her head slightly, and whispered in a voice so soft, I almost missed it over Sophie's cries. If he loves you so much, let him watch you both burn. I wanted to lunge at her, to tear her apart with my bare hands. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The paramedics pulled me back as they worked on Sophie, their voices urgent, their hands fast. I watched, frozen, as they lifted her onto a stretcher. Her tiny hands reached for me, her lips trembling with silent sobs. And then the ambulance doors slammed shut, taking her away. I stood there long after they left. My skin still burned where I had touched her. My heart felt like it had been torn out of my chest. The crowd slowly began to scatter. Whispers followed me all the way home. Whispers that would later turn into headlines. Mother and daughter attacked in broad daylight. Jealous mistress snaps in revenge plot. Local teacher faces attempted murder charges. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew the man they should have been pointing their fingers at. Ryan Walker, my husband, Sophie's father, the man who promised me it was over. He didn't just break our family. He fed Jessica just enough hope, just enough rage, and pointed her right at us like we were nothing but obstacles in his way. He lit the match, and he watched us burn. It's strange how fast the world moves on without you. One moment, you're standing in the center of it all, wife, mother, holding together what's left of a broken family. The next, you're nothing but a headline people scroll past at dinner. The city forgot us faster than I ever thought possible. The news cycle moved on. The reporters packed up their cameras. The concerned neighbors stopped bringing casseroles. Even the sympathetic glances from strangers on the street dried up. People have a way of looking the other way when pain stays longer than they're comfortable with. They want their tragedies fast, and their heroes faster. And when the spotlight fades, so do their good intentions. But pain doesn't pack up and leave when the news does. Sophie survived the attack, but the doctors didn't sugarcoat it. The burns had done too much damage. Skin grafts helped, but only so much. One side of her face had smoothed over in uneven patches of pale, tight skin, while the other still bore angry, red scars that no amount of surgery could erase. Her left eyebrow never grew back. Her lip curled slightly on one side, making her mouth look like it was always trembling. She used to smile so easily. She used to light up every room she walked into. Now, she couldn't even look at herself in the mirror. They told me the treatments could continue, that there was hope for improvement. But hope, I learned, comes with a price tag, one I couldn't afford. I brought her home after weeks of hospitals and surgeries and silent nights spent sitting by her bed while machines beeped in the dark. I remember standing in the doorway of our tiny apartment, staring at the photos on the wall, the ones we took before. Before everything, our wedding photo, Sophie's first day of school, her last birthday party, blowing out candles with frosting on her nose. I felt like I was standing in someone else's life, someone else's home. Sophie didn't say a word when I carried her inside. She didn't even look up. She went straight to her room, closed the door, and didn't come out for hours. I sat on the couch, staring at that closed door, listening to the sound of nothing. No cartoons, no music, no giggles, just silence. Crushing, suffocating silence. I tried everything to bring her back. I cooked her favorite meals, pancakes shaped like little hearts, just like she used to love. I played her favorite songs, the ones she used to dance to on the living room rug. I bought her new stuffed animals, new books, new puzzles. But she didn't touch any of it. She didn't even touch me. I started reading to her again, sitting outside her door every night, with the same old book she used to beg for when she was little. I read it cover to cover, night after night, even when my throat burned and my voice cracked. I told myself she was listening. I told myself she could still hear me, but the truth was, I didn't know anymore. And Ryan disappeared. No calls, no visits, not even a single text to ask if his daughter had survived. I left messages, dozens of them, long, desperate voicemails, begging him to come. I told him Sophie needed him. I told him she was slipping away. But the only thing I ever got back was silence. Weeks blurred into months. Bills started piling up. The hospital sent notices about unpaid treatments. I took extra shifts wherever I could, cleaning offices at night, scrubbing floors in grocery stores, picking up cans and bottles for recycling just to scrape together enough for groceries. Every penny went to Sophie's care. Every breath I took was for her. When she finally went back to school, she begged me not to walk her to the gates. I could see the fear in her eyes. She didn't want them to see her with me. She didn't want to stand out any more than she already did. So I watched her from the corner across the street, hiding behind parked cars like some kind of criminal. I watched her pull her hood tight around her face. I watched her walk with her head down, her steps so small it looked like she was trying to disappear. And they saw her anyway. The first few days were whispers, quiet giggles behind cupped hands, but kids don't stay quiet for long. Soon the whispers turned to cruel words, laughter, fingers pointing, monster, freak, burnt face. I heard them all. I stood there, fists clenched at my sides, biting my tongue until it bled. Because what was I supposed to do? Fight a bunch of 8-year-olds? Sophie stopped looking me in the eye. She started locking her door at night. She started pulling away from every hand I reached out. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped speaking. She stopped living. And Ryan moved on. He didn't just leave us. He erased us. One day, the divorce papers showed up in the mail. No warning, no explanation. Just a courier with cold eyes and a clipboard. I called him, over and over again. I begged him to explain. I begged him to face us, but he never did. And then I saw it, plastered all over social media. Ryan Walker, Claire Moore, newly engaged, expecting their first child, smiling like they had never known pain. like Sophie and I had never even existed. I stared at that screen until my vision blurred. My hands trembled so hard I could barely hold the phone. I looked across the room at my daughter, my broken, silent little girl, curled up in the corner like a ghost of who she used to be. And in that moment, I knew we were already gone in his eyes. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. I used to believe there was a bottom to grief, like if you fell far enough, eventually you'd hit something solid. A place where the pain stops getting worse. But I was wrong. There's no bottom. There's just falling, deeper and darker, until you can't even remember what light used to feel like. That's what those days became. An endless fall. I don't know how long I kept going through the motions. Waking up in the morning, leaving food by Sophie's door, sitting outside with my back pressed against the wall. Like if I stayed long enough, she might open it. She never did. I told myself I had time. That if I kept trying, maybe one day she'd let me back in. But deep down, I think I knew. She wasn't just shutting me out. She was slipping somewhere I couldn't reach. And I was running out of time to pull her back. I spent every waking moment thinking of ways to fix it. I called every therapist I could find, begged every doctor for another payment plan we couldn't afford. I even went to Ryan's office once, sat in the parking lot for hours like a fool, waiting to catch him before he disappeared again. But I couldn't bring myself to go inside. What would I even say? How do you beg a man who's already decided you don't exist? I turned the car around and drove home empty. Again. I spent the night on the floor outside Sophie's door, reading until my voice cracked. I remember whispering through the crack in the wood, telling her about all the places we used to dream of going, how I was saving up so one day we could go. I told her I was proud of her, that I loved her more than anything, that I wasn't going anywhere. But she never answered, not even a breath. The next morning felt like every other, gray, heavy. I left her breakfast on the floor, just like always. I promised I'd check on her after work. That night when I got home, the plate was still there, cold and untouched. I knocked softly, pressing my palm flat against the door. Sophie, nothing. I slid down to the floor, hugging my knees to my chest, rocking like if I held myself tight enough. The cracks inside me wouldn't split wide open. I must have fallen asleep there because when I woke up, the sun was already high. And Sophie's door was still closed. It wasn't until the school called that everything stopped. I almost didn't answer. For a second, I thought about letting it go to voicemail like I had 100 times before. But something in my chest cracked open, cold and raw. I picked up the phone with shaking hands. And when I heard the voice on the other end, I already knew. Sophie had climbed to the roof. She hadn't come back down. I dropped the phone, dropped to my knees. My body shook so hard I thought my bones would shatter. I don't remember how I got to the school. I don't remember who found me there, screaming into the empty sky. The days after blurred into nothing. The funeral was small, a few teachers, neighbors who didn't know what to say. No Ryan, of course, no Ryan. I stood there alone, staring at the tiny patch of earth they buried her in, clutching my fists so tight I swore my nails would break skin. I waited for him to show. He didn't. I spent that night in her room, sitting on her bed, clutching the pillow that still smelled like her hair. I stared at the paper cranes she had hung by the window, swaying gently like they were mocking me. I replayed every moment, every failure, every time I told myself tomorrow would be different. But there were no more tomorrows. Not for her, not for me. And yet, Ryan still got to live like nothing had happened. I knew he was out there, playing house with Claire, planning their perfect future, while my daughter lay cold in the ground. I don't remember making the decision. I just remember standing up, walking to the kitchen, opening that drawer. I held the knife in my hands for a long time, turning it over and over, wondering if he would even flinch when he saw me again. I left the apartment without locking the door. There was nothing left to protect. I found him exactly where I knew he'd be. The park, our park. The place we used to take Sophie on weekends. Back when we still pretended to be a family. He was sitting on a bench, holding Claire's hand, her stomach round and full with the life they were building. I stood there for a long time, watching them. They didn't notice me. Why would they? I was already a ghost. When I finally stepped forward, he looked up, startled for half a second before that familiar irritation crossed his face. Like I was some minor inconvenience in his perfect day. "Lily, what the hell?" She's gone, I whispered. He froze. Sophie's gone. His face twisted, like he didn't understand, like the words didn't make sense. Gone? What do you mean? She jumped, Ryan, off the school roof. She's gone. For a moment, just a moment, I saw something crack in his eyes. But it wasn't grief. It was fear. Fear that his perfect little life was about to unravel. He stood up, running a hand through his hair like he was trying to find the right words to shut me down. I didn't let him speak. I stepped closer, clutching the knife so tight my knuckles turned white. She waited for you, you know. Every night. She waited for you to care. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He just shook his head like none of this was real. Like I was crazy for standing there. And then he said it. The thing that broke me all over again. She was broken anyway. I felt the air leave my lungs. The world tilted. And before I knew it, I had closed the distance between us. The knife slipped between his ribs so smoothly it felt like the universe had been waiting for this moment as long as I had. He gasped, clutching at me like he had the right to be saved. His knees hit the ground first, eyes wide with something that looked like regret, but I didn't care. I leaned down, pressing my lips to his ear one last time. She's waiting for you. I let him fall, watched the life drain from his eyes, and in that moment I felt nothing. No fear, no guilt, no relief. Just silence. I turned the blade on myself without hesitation, pressing it to the skin above my heart. For the first time in months, the weight lifted. The fall stopped, and as the world faded, I pictured her again, my Sophie, smiling like she used to, before the world broke us. I expected nothingness. Cold, dark, empty nothingness. That's what I thought death would feel like. Just an endless black, swallowing every piece of me until there was nothing left to feel. But that wasn't what happened. Instead, I woke to the soft hum of a ceiling fan spinning above me. My throat burned with the breath I didn't remember taking, my chest heaving like I had just surfaced from drowning. I blinked hard, heart pounding, trying to process what I was seeing. The wallpaper, the crooked photo frame, the faint scent of soup coming from the kitchen. My breath hitched in my throat. I knew this place. I knew this moment. I sat up on the couch, my body trembling as I scanned the room. The paper cranes, the chipped coffee table. Everything was exactly the way it had been. Before. I stumbled toward the calendar on the wall, gripping the edges like it was the only thing holding me upright. September 11th. My eyes snapped to the clock. 4:50 p.m. My stomach twisted so hard I nearly collapsed. This wasn't just a dream. It was that day. The day I lost everything. I stood there frozen for what felt like hours, my mind spiraling. I had 10 minutes. 10 minutes until Sophie walked out of Fairview Elementary. 10 minutes until Jessica Ward would show up at the school gates with that bottle of acid. 10 minutes until I lost my little girl all over again. But this time, I wasn't paralyzed. This time, I wasn't too late. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. The line connected almost immediately, the dispatcher's voice professional and steady. I didn't waste a second. "Please, you have to listen to me," I choked out. "My daughter, Sophie Carter, she's in danger. There's a woman, Jessica Ward. She's waiting outside Fairview Elementary. She's planning to attack her. Please, you have to stop her before it happens." I expected hesitation. I expected doubt. But instead, the dispatcher responded calmly. "Units are on their way. Stay on the line." I didn't stay. I couldn't. I shoved the phone into my pocket and bolted out the door, running harder than I ever had before. My legs burned, my chest ached. But none of it mattered. I had already lost Sophie once. I wouldn't lose her again. I reached the school just as the bell rang. Dozens of children began pouring through the gates. I searched frantically, heart slamming against my ribs. And then I saw her, my Sophie, small, fragile, wrapped in her gray hoodie, walking alone with her head down. My breath caught in my throat. But before I could move, I saw her, Jessica Ward, standing a few feet away, blending in with the crowd like she belonged there. She held a small gift bag, smiling softly, eyes locked on Sophie like a predator ready to strike. My blood turned to ice. For a split second, I froze. But then I ran. I shoved through the crowd, my voice cracking as I screamed, "Sophie, run!" Sophie flinched, her head snapping up just in time to see Jessica stepping toward her. Jessica's smile vanished, replaced by a twisted look of rage. Her hand slipped into the bag, pulling out a bottle. I saw the cap already loosened. My heart stopped. And then the sirens hit. 2 officers appeared out of nowhere, tackling Jessica to the ground before she could even lift her arm. The bottle flew from her hand, hitting the pavement with a sharp clatter but staying intact. One officer pinned her down while the other kicked the bottle safely away. Jessica thrashed and screamed, her face contorted with hatred, but she wasn't going anywhere. I pushed past the crowd and reached Sophie just as she started to cry. I dropped to my knees, wrapping my arms around her, holding her like I'd never let go again. She shook in my arms, sobbing into my shoulder, and all I could do was whisper over and over, "You're safe. You're safe. I've got you." For the first time in forever, I wasn't too late. I should have felt relief, but that night, as I sat on the edge of Sophie's bed, watching her finally sleep without fear, I knew something was still wrong. Jessica was behind bars, yes, but the real sickness hadn't started with her. It had started with him. Ryan Walker, the man who made the first lie, the first betrayal, the man who pushed a woman to madness and used our daughter as his shield. I couldn't explain how I knew. Maybe it was the weight in my gut or the memories that had come flooding back the moment I opened my eyes in this second chance. But deep down, I knew Ryan wasn't just a bystander. He had fed that monster. He had aimed her at us. And somehow, he had walked away clean the first time. Not this time. So I started digging. Late nights sitting in the dark with Ryan's old laptop, the one he used to guard so carefully. I cracked the password in less than 10 minutes. It was Sophie's birthday. Figures. A perfect father on the outside. A monster hiding underneath. I went through everything. Emails, messages, hidden folders he probably thought I'd never find. And there it was. A string of messages to Jessica. Dozens of them. Promises. Lies. Manipulation dressed up as love. I read every word with shaking hands. "You know, I'll always care about you, but my family comes first. If Lily knew what we had, she'd take Sophie away from me. I have to stay with them, for now." And then the one that made me sick. "I just wish Lily and Sophie would disappear so we could finally be free." He had said it, written it, planted the seed in Jessica's mind and watched it grow. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room, but I wasn't done yet. I needed more. I dug through financial records next. Transactions hidden under different names, large sums of money transferred to a private account. And then, Claire Moore. I found her name buried in the records. Payments for her rent, her car, her tuition, all while Ryan told me we were broke. And the final blow, proof that just weeks before our world fell apart, Ryan had won a lottery prize. $1 million. Not a cent had gone to Sophie's treatment. Not a cent had come to us. He'd moved it all into Claire's name, piece by piece, like he knew what was coming, like he had planned it. I gathered everything, every screenshot, every receipt, every thread of betrayal he had tried to bury, and I went to the police. At first they were skeptical, until I showed them the messages, the payments, the lies. Piece by piece, the officers leaned in closer, faces darkening. By the time I finished, they didn't just believe me, they were furious. They opened an investigation that same night. They followed the money, they pulled records from the lottery commission. And it didn't take long for them to see it all. Ryan Walker wasn't just guilty of adultery. He was guilty of conspiracy. He had manipulated Jessica into doing his dirty work, knowing she was unstable. He had used my daughter as bait. The next morning, Ryan was arrested at his office. His face hit every news headline before lunchtime. Local businessman arrested in acid attack conspiracy. Ryan Walker's secret life exposed. Claire Moore tried to play the victim, claimed she had no idea where the money had come from. But the bank statements didn't lie. She had accepted every dollar, and I wasn't done with her either. I filed a lawsuit the same day. Demanded every cent back. Demanded the house they bought under her name. Demanded justice for Sophie. She fought, she cried. Claimed she was pregnant. Claimed I was heartless. But I didn't back down. The court ruled in my favor. Claire lost everything. As for Ryan, the trial was brutal. Every detail spilled into the open for the world to see. The jury didn't hesitate. Guilty. sentenced to 15 years for conspiracy to commit assault with intent to harm a child. Not nearly enough for what he had done, but it was something. It was a start. I stood outside the courthouse on the day they took him away, watching as they loaded him into the transport van. He didn't look at me, not once. I didn't need him to. I already knew I had won. And as I walked away, I felt Sophie's tiny hand slip into mine. She looked up at me, her eyes tired, but finally free of the fear that had haunted us for so long. We walked home together, leaving the past behind us, knowing that for the first time in what felt like forever, the nightmare was finally over.